So what does it mean when your intuition is telling you something, but you're kind of seemingly doing something else? And you realize later that you kind of knew that the decisions you made were actually probably not necessarily good for you. And we're gonna remove that good bad. We're gonna come into neutrality around all that. But have you had that happen to you where you feel like you ignored your intuition? And did you ignore it, or is it something else that needed to happen in order for you to learn your lessons? So I'm gonna make a distinction between your intuition and actually going into situations based on what your higher self, your soul, actually needs. Okay? So it's not that you ignored your intuition per se, it's that your higher self knew that you needed to do something in order to grow, and it was for you to learn. Okay, so as I think about my experiences, and I may talk about like a few examples of this, it's like my higher self hijacked my intuition, literally. It feels like a hijack because I've had like, experiences in relationships. So one example is I thought it was my intuition guiding a connection I made with a man. This is probably over around 5 years ago. Okay. And I thought my intuition was saying, this is great, this is good, like, go for it. And then it was just completely opposite of what I was thinking my intuition was telling me. It was like I was completely blindsided and ghosted and everything, if you know what that means, meaning the person disappeared, which never happened in my life. And to me, it was, at the time, I thought my intuition was wrong. And what actually happened was that my soul, or my higher self, chose to make these decisions and perhaps actually hijacked the intuition, saying, this isn't good, this is definitely, there's something wrong here. But the higher self doesn't really know the difference. It's just going for what you need in that moment, the lessons you need, and the experiences that you need, okay? So it wasn't actually that my intuition was telling me something wrong. It was actually that my higher self was actually just going with the flow of what was needed for my own growth, okay? So that was a really difficult one to get through. It was a shock to my system, and I was like, okay, so something must be wrong with my intuition. Like, what's going on here? How did I not pick up on this? But I think that was what I would say a hijack of my intuition by my higher self, okay? So another example I can give is a more recent one, and it's an experience I had with a man that I had my intuition give me signals, right? Spending time. There was one moment where I had this like voice come in me say, this isn't right. And then I had like bodily sensations, feeling like that anxiety around the whole thing, the whole connection. I had even dreams that I am interpreting now as intuition, right? Showing me there's a connection here, and definitely look at this. There's something here that you need to look at. It felt like a premonition or a connection to truth of what was really going on, and it was like dreams that showed the kind of like sensual connection that was possible. Okay. So I took it as a sign. Okay, that's how I took it. I took it as a sign of some kind that maybe there's something here that I need to explore. My intuition was telling me there's something here, but it's also not right. So there was a combination of something's not right, but this is what's going on, that you need to look at this. My higher self bypassed these signals, meaning when I got that voice, this isn't right, my higher self said, but you need to do it anyways. Now, could I say that was my ego? Maybe, but to me, when I look at the bigger picture, there were no mistakes here, okay? So that's another thing. When you're going into something and later on you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that because this and this and this. But there is no shouldn't have. There is no mistake. You obviously needed to do this because your higher self doesn't really see things as good or bad. There's a reason why my higher self, I'm going to say, hijacked the whole situation and said, you need this lesson. Yes, there is something definitely, intuitively I knew this person isn't for me. Meaning like my life partner, meaning like it was going to be temporary. Like part of me already knew that there was a mismatch, okay? But my higher self, obviously because of whatever woundedness I still have and attachments I still have to needing love, to needing attention, to needing to be taken care of, all that stuff needs to be cleared out. So the only way was to go through with it. Or I did the healing work and didn't go through with it. There were basically those two options. And so my higher self, or my self, my true self, went for it. Because that is how I needed to get the lesson for myself. Otherwise, I could have, if I was ready, I could have done the healing on my own and learned that I don't need somebody to show me love. I don't need somebody to, validate my worth. And I don't need somebody to do all that. But I guess I needed to go into it to realize as soon as it was ripped away from me that now it's time to finally look at it, to finally look at this issue instead of ignoring it. Where, this is where the healing comes in. In one of my, the last video, I said, you need to heal to find your next ideal partner. You're healing, you're giving yourself, a lot of love and knowing exactly what you want, right? So I hadn't finished those steps, okay? Those steps are not finished. Therefore, I got somebody that I needed in the moment, but like I think I alluded to in that last video, it wasn't necessarily the final one, okay? So your higher self is actually serving you. Your intuition is a bit of a navigator because you can decide based on, I could have easily said, oh, my intuition says this isn't right. Okay, I'm going to go with that, right? But then if I didn't get the lesson, it would have come in another form, right? I would have had to actually go inside myself and really check in and actually, see, well, if I'm not supposed to be with this person, then what does that mean? So was I ready to do that? Probably not, And so I needed to go through with it. And now I'm ready to look at it. So now I'm in this healing state where everything's coming to the surface and I'm like, okay, well, therefore, if this is possible, if this kind of love was given to me and ripped away so quickly, then I have to really look at this situation and see what I need to do next. Because if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, not getting your lessons, you just, you keep attracting the same people over and over again, right? So it was to serve me. To do this, to have this experience was a service to me, to my soul. So just to kind of clarify, the intuition is you feel the sensations, you have like immediate thoughts. Your intuition is a guide, okay? It doesn't mean that you're going to choose those signs and those feelings. But it doesn't mean you did something wrong if you didn't follow that, right? Remember, the higher self is what is actually ultimately guiding you on your journey to healing, to growing, to learning. And your intuition is what's actually kind of giving you the messages of, you know, this is what you could do, this is what you like need to look at, and then ultimately you choose based on what you need. Okay? So I'm okay with what happened. I understand that I technically bypassed the message of this person isn't right for you. I bypassed it, and I needed to. And so don't be hard on yourself. If you bypass like a lot of people do this, they bypass their intuition. They kind of say, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it's wrong, you know. And it's not that so your intuition is always right, but again, you need to do what is necessary for you to grow, okay? And then don't just trust that if you feel like you made a mistake, it's not a mistake. It was all meant to be that. It was meant to be that thing. You didn't ignore necessarily your intuition. You just didn't need to listen for some reason. And it's not because something needed to happen to you. It was happening for you to learn. You didn't ignore your intuition. So it's like you heard it, but you knew something else needed to happen. Your higher self knew. Okay? So there is no good or bad in whatever you decide to choose. It just is. Everything is what it is. Everything happens as it needs to. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And I hope to see you around, see you soon, and thank you for listening. Bye for now.